Good morning. Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday and happy September. It is so great to see each and every one of you today for our daily or natural news live show. I have downgraded this show to Monday, Wednesday, and Friday as we're trying to figure out our schedule with virtual learning and managing mom and work life. So I appreciate your patience as we sort that out. But I'm very excited today to share with you a whole bunch of COVID news and also discuss with you some research actually happening in Canada that could very well be very promising. And it is focusing on a particular berry. I just happen to use these routinely and have these in my freezer. But we're going to talk about this particular berry. It's an Amazonian superfood, and it's being researched as a potential anti-inflammatory with regard to the impact on the body with COVID. So that's really exciting. I love to share nutritional information and research about food being utilized as medicine. And that is exactly what we're going to talk about today. So if you're curious about this berry, stick with me, or you can fast forward. There'll be a button down below where you can go directly to that information. And it is going to be, I think, really impactful. I'm going to share with you a whole bunch of benefits of this particular superfood. It's one that's probably very familiar to all of you, but we'll just kind of jog your memory and highlight how awesome of a powerful, potent superfood it is. So welcome all of you. If you missed me yesterday, I missed all of you. It was kind of nice to have a little bit of a break. And, we're back to the daily grind here, and my child boycotted food and we had difficulty logging on. And so things are back to normal. So let's talk about COVID news. And for all of you new, and if you're joining us for the first time, welcome. My name is Dr. Melissa Gallagher. And I'm a naturopathic medicine. I focus on functional medicine and addressing the root cause of illness and disease. I'm very much food forward in my practice, and I primarily focus on healing and addressing autoimmunity, hormonal imbalance, gut imbalances, and detoxification issues like the lymphatics. So that's my area of expertise, and I encourage you to join us, follow. I have a whole bunch of YouTube videos and content and a lot of information coming out this month that I think will be impactful. So welcome all of you. I see a bunch of familiar faces, which is so wonderful. And comment down below where you're joining and tuning in from. So let's talk about COVID news. Specifically, the world is at 225.3 million cases, and the US is at 6.1 million cases. The US yesterday had an increase of almost 50,000 new positive cases. And we are quickly approaching 190,000 fatalities. We're at 187,441 Americans dead. This surpasses the total quantity of fatalities from World War I, which is overwhelming when you really think about that. So let's talk a little bit about some of the states. California particularly has been in the news because they surpassed a total of 700,000 positive cases in that state. They have now 707,000 positive cases. Yesterday, they added 3,700 new cases and had a fatality day of 85. And California is getting a whole bunch of news related to a lot of things. They're reopening slowly, and the phasing of the reopening is frustrating a lot of business owners, like gyms and nail salons are yet to open. But the other thing that's happening is they're still dealing with an outbreak, and there is a poultry farm called Foster Farms in, I think it's Livingston, California. They have a major outbreak and the plant has closed, and they have a total of over 400 positive cases from that plant alone and 8 fatalities. And if you haven't tuned in, or you're kind of, coming in and out of our show, I reported, I think it was now almost 3 weeks ago, one of the things that China had found was that they were importing animal-based protein, meat protein like poultry, from Brazil, where there was a big outbreak. And what they were finding is they were testing the poultry and it was testing positive for COVID viral particulates. And so that is something to be very much forewarned. Foster Farms is the name of the poultry vendor. It's definitely a good time to go plant-based if you can. Poultry is also increased by, I think, 15% in terms of the pricing. So that's another thing to deal with. Florida is in the news because schools are starting back this week. I actually got a message from one of my dear friends who was going to be teaching virtually. She would have to go to school and still log on and teach her students virtually. Got a last minute note that she would be having students in the classroom. She's at risk, and the students she has, many of them wear diapers, and she is in a special education classroom. And so, there are a lot of teachers that are concerned in Florida, despite the growing outbreak that is there. So for instance, Florida is at 631,000 cases total, and they put up a new positive cases of 7,500 new cases, and had a bad fatality day, 190 fatalities. So Florida they're not in a dip at all, and that's a big concern. Texas, I just want to highlight, they're at 617,000. They had a 4,300 positive case day and 145 fatalities yesterday. I live here in Georgia. Many of you live here as well who follow me. We're at 272,000 cases, and yesterday we had 100 fatalities. And I reported last week we had the first fatality of a 1-year-old in our area. So I do want to make a note, some of the things that we know just looking at week over week. South Dakota right now has the highest positive percentage cases. I have to apologize. The yard guy, they used to come on Tuesdays, but now they're coming on Wednesdays for our neighbor. So you might hear some crazy sounds. South Dakota has had an increasing positive percentage testing rate. They're now over 23%. So that is a very bad percentage. Anything over 5% is a sign that you have massive outbreak. Right now, there's 105 cases that are linked to the Sturgis motorcycle rally. And the state that has the highest outbreak, so annoying. The state that has the highest level of outbreak is Iowa. So any of you live in Iowa, comment down below. And again, if you like this type of content, let me know by giving me a thumbs up. I appreciate it. I try and take a lot of time to give you this research. So I appreciate that feedback. So in Iowa, 3 of the largest counties that have COVID cases are actually 3 counties that have universities. And in 1 week, Iowa's cases increased by 8,000, which is significant. That's a huge increase for the state. Currently, the University of Iowa has a total of 1,016 cases. They had an increase yesterday of 301 cases on campus. So we'll be monitoring the university campuses. I do want to report some other universities that are to note. Utah State University. This is really fascinating. They have tested wastewater of the dorms. And in August, I had reported that CDC rolled out their national wastewater surveillance system. This we saw in European countries where they could, instead of testing all populations, they could test wastewater. And because we know there's fecal transfer and our fecal matter contains viral particulates, active, and it's contagious. So that's one of the reasons why my friend's really concerned, because she's dealing with changing diapers and things like that. But what they did was the university, the Utah State University, they've been testing the wastewater, and what they found is 4 dorms have been red alert. They've been flagged by the wastewater testing, and now they're testing and quarantining all 4 dorms, all of the population there. And that is very interesting. It's a different methodology to address the fact that we just don't have the proper testing methodology. We don't have a national testing strategy, and we have still shortages. And then an assortment of tests that sometimes are accurate or inaccurate. So this is very interesting. The other thing that we are seeing is another university that's on the radar is the University of South Carolina. They've had an increase now. They're at over 1,000 new positive cases on campus. Currently, 60% of their quarantine space, they've got isolation rooms and they've got kind of quarantine quarters. 60% of those spaces are full. So that is very telling that, if the cases continue, they will reach a peak capacity, and they'll have to figure another option out, either for on-campus learning or whatnot. Now, today, the World Health Organization in Europe came out and they basically said, for any of you Game of Throners, like we're big fans, they said winter is coming. And what that means is cautionary and very much concern about the fact that we are going to have COVID coupled with flu season. So that's just kind of a note that we could very well see all of these numbers, all of the outbreaks increase if we don't get a handle on things. And that's just internationally. So as the cold weather descends, people go inside. And so, are we going to be able to have a social gathering within family outside, when it's -20? Not particularly. And so, my concern too is with winter coming, that we are going to deal with greater instances of depression and isolation because of the lack of being able to gather outside, given the weather conditions. So I do want to talk about some new research that was posted by the journal, by New England Journal of Medicine. They have posted a research article, a research study in Iceland. And so this is specific to addressing antibodies within an assortment of, actually, it's one of the largest antibody tests, studies, which is really fascinating. They had over 30,000 individuals in this sample size, which is substantial. One of the challenges, with COVID, and I was interviewed yesterday on Zoom. I had an interview with this wonderful public health professional. I was starting to link and look at functional medicine and its role with COVID, which is exciting because there's definitely a place and space for us. We were talking about antibodies and testing and vaccines and things. And one of the things that we were talking about, she asked, how do I do my research? And, how do I quantify what's valid and what's not? And one of the things I said was also, I look at how big are these sample sizes? And with COVID, usually we want a large population to be tested or to be a part of a study. But with COVID, we don't always have the option. And so sometimes it's a little wonky. You might have 48 people or 12 people or 1,200. But this particular study is really amazing. It's a huge population in Iceland. There are over 30,000 individuals were a part of the sample subset. And they lumped them into 3 groups. They had COVID. They maybe had some exposure to COVID. Didn't mean they had COVID or had been tested, but they were exposed. And then the third party, it was no known exposure. And out of that group, what they isolated it down to 487 people, ended up getting retested. The time frame is, first test month 1, and then the second test after 4 months. What they found is with these folks that had antibodies, either through exposure, known exposure, they had tested positive for COVID, unknown, and even asymptomatic, they found that they were increasing antibodies in the first 2 months, but that they sustained themselves up to 4 months. And that is a little bit of a tweak to some of the earlier research we saw in May and June about antibodies, that it only lasted 2 to 3 months and then it just kind of died out. Now, this may very well be partly due to the particular type of health status of people in Iceland. It might be due to, the different dietary changes and, increases in vitamin D that they find in cod liver. And it is very interesting, but the antibodies themselves, they looked at the length of time. So these were the groups they kind of categorized people in, and it's very fascinating, just in terms of, they looked at hospitalized, recovered, and then individuals that may have been non-positive depending on their location. So they really isolated this down, and also the time frame. So they look at, early 2020, which is February 18th through March 9th. And then they look at May 5th through the 12th, and then all the way up to July 8th. So it's a long time frame as well, that 4-month time frame. But this is very interesting in terms of the antibody levels from the clinical assessment, that we might be seeing maybe some changes with some of the kind of different strains of COVID affecting the antibody levels differently. But this is very telling. And they broke out the quantity of folks that had no sort of exposure. It was 18,000 who did not have any exposure, who had exposure just under 2,000, no symptoms or asymptomatic, 3,400, and folks that actually were like, yes, I have it, I got tested and had COVID was 1,600. So this is fascinating information, just more information about our body's natural immune process, which ties into what we'll be talking about today about this superfood that's being studied for its immune regulation, but also the role in lowering the inflammatory response of the immune system. I do want to make a note. We've got some more changes, some more backtracking from the FDA. So we're now at 10 days after the FDA pushed through emergency authorization of convalescent plasma. And there's a lot of flack for how it was rolled out, some communication from the director about percentages, even though they didn't have they didn't have a randomized sample, because COVID, this could be life or death. And so doctors are, there aren't trials right now where folks are, being put in a category like, oh, well, you're in a randomized trial and you aren't getting, a placebo or whatever. So with that being said, the FDA has rolled back a little bit of information. Some of this is related to the National Institutes of Health and the COVID treatment guidelines panel, really clamping down on them. But basically, they came out and said there's no solid evidence for convalescent plasma in the prevention of a fatality. So basically, the kind of difference is that there are it's clinically important for managing symptoms, but they've rolled back now and they're saying, well, it's not proven to be something that is changes their survival rate. And so I think that's kind of interesting. It's really unfortunate to see some of these groups that, should have a little bit more solid grounding in terms of what they're communicating, having to come back and roll back. It just does not do well for credibility's sake. Now, on a totally different note, for all of us dog lovers, this is really exciting. I have to share with you something out of MIT up in Massachusetts. And they've posted this. It's a non-peer reviewed research article as well. But there's way more research currently underway. There is a robot dog. So this is called Spot. And Spot is a robot dog that has 4 cameras on it. And it has all of these it has the technical capacity with cameras, infrared screening. The robot is yellow and black, as you see, and it stays 6 feet away from a patient, and it can be used to evaluate an assortment of symptoms. Currently, it's in use at Brigham and Women's up in Boston. Our hospital is linked with Harvard Medical School. And it can take your pulse, it can take your temperature, it can evaluate your O2 levels and other certain health diagnostics, if you will. This now is being produced by Boston Dynamics, and they've tested this out in other countries as well, and they're looking at this being potentially something they could roll out in schools, larger settings, could also be helpful for doctors' offices. But thought that was really interesting. You guys know I love to look at details and information that comes out. But it's got like an iPad at the top, and then it has all these like cameras, and it's very, very fascinating that we might be able to use technology to aid in our process of managing COVID. Some additional news, the Bureau of Prisons, there's a total of 122 facilities here nationally. They are now opening up in-person visits, despite they've had outbreaks and still have outbreaks in the facilities. Folks are either quarantined or in isolation or in the hospital or in medical treatment, but they're starting to allow for in-person visits. So that's a little bit of a concern. And then the big news of today, which is the core topic of our show, let me look at our time, is a particular study out of the University of Toronto. It's currently underway. And so I don't have the published details, but it is very promising. And if you are unfamiliar with Canada and their healthcare system and just kind of the approach that they take, naturopaths, which is what I am, we are up there, the front line. We are the primary care provider. So if you get sick, a lot of times you just go and see your naturopath. And so we deal with the body and management of symptoms by addressing the root cause. We use functional medicine, we use naturopathic and natural therapeutics, herbs, homeopathy. And Canada just has a very different kind of focus, as many other countries do, in terms of healing the body. So instead of symptom management, it's looking at how do we address the whole system and how do we heal the entire body, because everything works together. It's symbiotic. There's no, functional organ or gland that's on an island operating by itself. And that being said, one of the things that's fascinating to me when I found out about this research is that the University of Toronto it has this study. It's in the COVID world, it's kind of substantial. They have 580 people that are in part of this trial, and it's to assess acai berry. So this is my little frozen pack of acai berry. But acai berry is an amazing superfood. It was really hot, in terms of like trendy, maybe I'd say 8 to 10 years ago. But acai, it comes from Brazil. It's an Amazonian superfood. And the berry itself is extremely potent and powerful. And I'm going to talk to you about the benefits, but I want to kind of highlight what this research is assessing. The main basis of this research is to assess a particular anti-inflammatory inhibition that acai berry promotes. And what that means is research has identified that COVID targets a particular pathway. The pathway is called NLRP3. And this pathway plays a significant role on triggering or turning on the body's natural immune response. And what we know already is that acai, it also targets that pathway, but in a very different way. So where COVID turns on and it becomes sometimes a multi-system inflammatory state, the body and multi-systems start failing. We see the overwhelming inflammatory disorders and diseases, the heart impact. We see the cytokine storm get invigorated. Acai, what they're researching is acai potentially has the ability to have a different effect. So the different effect would be to activate the body's response mechanism in a positive way to fight the infection. I don't have results. So again, I want to just clarify for, the folks that review this video that this is in no way saying acai is the end-all cure-all. There's no cure for COVID. And I know many of you want to argue that, but I have to make that legal claim. And so I'm doing so right now. But this is very exciting because acai is a superfood. We're talking about food and nutrition. And the fact that there's a clinical trial and an assessment of the power of food and the nutrients and all the biochemical, the phytochemical nutrients in the ability to turn on our immune system in a way that it might be used to fight the virus is extremely exciting. It's one of those things like we're all jumping up and down about this because very rarely do we see food as being a subject or a food item, being the subject matter of a clinical trial, especially as a therapeutic. And so I want to make that note because for us in the natural world and in nutrition, the fact that we are seeing acai berry being investigated, granted it's not here in the US, which, it's something that's not surprising, right? We mostly focus on pharmaceuticals and therapeutics like remdesivir and the others. This is really exciting. And so I'm very excited about that. And so because of that, I wanted to focus our show today on the benefits of acai berry, because if you haven't had it, it's fantastic. And a lot of times it can come to you in the way of a frozen packet. This happens to be this Sambazon, and this is an acai berry. I also like guanabana. When I went to Costa Rica, I fell in love with this particular fruit, but it is really amazing. And it's hard to tell because this is a frozen packet, but it's very dense. and works really well in smoothies and you can do acai bowls and, all of these really yummy foods. So I want to highlight, I think 9 or 10 reasons why acai is potent and a good thing to consider adding into your daily diet, just given that we know it is an anti-inflammatory inhibitor. We're going to learn more about that role in the research, but we do know already it has anti-inflammatory properties. We're going to learn more about it and why, and its relation to COVID in this University of Toronto research. So let's dig into acai berry. And by the way, comment down below if you guys consume acai berry. If you don't or don't have access to get this in a frozen form, which is usually kind of the raw food-ish form, I have links to 2 things that I love. You can get the acai extract, high potency extract down below. And there are these dark chocolate berries that has little dark chocolate yummies that have acai and mulberry in them that are to die for. They have dark chocolate, which has really good benefits. I've spoken about that a lot. So all you chocolate lovers, folks that want to get that, it's a nice little treat. And we actually have a lot of those in stock at Full Script. So you get 10% off that. And they are so delicious. So let's dig in. Let's talk about the benefits of consuming acai berry and the powerful benefits of the superfood. These are all the reasons why it's in the superfood category. 1, they're extremely rich in antioxidants. So acai berry has the ability to address oxidative stress, these free radicals that through normal chemical operations, stress, chemical stress, we have free radicals, a single cell that roams around the body. It roams around through the vascular channel and it can cause damage. It's part of our aging process. So when we want to reverse the aging process, the cellular acceleration of aging, we need to address free radicals. Free radicals are one of the main reasons why you actually need cholesterol as a reparative, a restorative, a healing Band-Aid, if you will, inside your vascular channels. So if you reduce the free radical damage, you actually keep yourself healthy, you keep your cells healthier, and you lower oxidative stress and damage within your body. So that's number 1. Its antioxidant power and potency is really high. The second thing, there's something called Anthocyanin, and this is an extract that is very pro-vascular, pro-cardiovascular health. This extract has the ability to either lower and or balance your cholesterol levels. Partly that's the antioxidant aspects at play, but particularly this one extract has the ability to lower the unhealthy cholesterol levels that a lot of people deal with. So for individuals that may have, they're eating healthy, they're exercising, and their cholesterol is really high, that's an indication of oxidative stress. And this particular substance that we find in acai also improves circulation. So there's a lot of benefit to just all different types of circulatory challenges and overall cardiovascular health. Number 3, those aspects at play also have some benefits in terms of heart healthy benefits. We see some of those phytonutrients helping to relax blood vessels. This is really good for folks that have a history of high blood pressure because over time, the degree of pressure can cause a thickening of the heart walls. It can cause less elasticity of your blood vessels. Those are all really important. We want to relax those. So the acai can do that. Number 4, it's fiber dense. It actually contains, like this serving size, contains 8% of my fiber requirement. And when we look at fiber requirement, we're looking at 35 to 40 grams of fiber a day. This is a lot. And it is highly dense. Like even when it's in its kind of liquid form, there's a lot of fiber. There's a lot of fiber to it. As we know, like a lot of berries are really good fiber-wise, but this is fantastic. Even the extracts that you get and those little chocolate berries, the acai chocolate berries I have linked down below, amazing. Now, the other thing that it has, and this is where the study, the University of Toronto study is highlighting, is its anti-inflammatory impact. We know a lot of skin-related inflammation, be it eczema, psoriasis, as well as any type of systemic inflammation. Folks with IBS, Crohn's, digestive inflammation also benefit from the anti-inflammatory properties. And we know that the acai, that NLR P3 pathway is an inflammatory pathway, and it can address that. So if you are sitting here and you have psoriatic arthritis, you have any type of lupus, any type of autoimmunity or inflammatory related disease, acai could very well be a potential nutrient, I'd say food-based therapeutic for you. And it tastes great. It is a very, very yummy food to blend into your smoothies. And so I love it for that. But particularly folks who have cystic acne or any kind of redness or even rosacea, some inflammation, it can address that. And Angela C says, love acai bowls. I bought acai powder to make acai bowls using mostly blueberries and add the acai powder. Not sure how potent or beneficial powder is. Powder, depending on how, with powders, it's obviously extracted. It kind of depends on the quantity. So you want to look at the milligram dosage. The higher you're going to have more potency. But, always try and go frozen first. But then if you can, get the extracted versions. Okay, now, number 6, it actually benefits the detox organs, the kidney and the liver. They see benefits in its ability to reduce additives and some of the chemicals that get introduced into the not so healthy SAD diet, standard American diet of packaged, heavily processed foods. It actually is pro-supportive to your kidney and your liver. And I love, love, love it. So that's the other thing it does is it helps detox your body. And number 7, it has polyphenols. And those are the plant-based, super powerful chemicals that aid in promoting your immune function. So what that University of Toronto study is going to be looking at is 2 functions, anti-inflammatory and the immune system regulation and modulation. So that potency there, just alone, if you're dealing with autoimmunity, you need powerful immune regulators and modulators. You don't need immune boosting. It has the reverse effect. But the fact that we know it can help modulate and regulate your immunity is potent. And the polyphenols also yield high levels of vitamin C. We know vitamin C, we know zinc. It's very rich in a lot of vitamins and minerals, which is my next benefit. It's going to give you a lot of the minerals and vitamins that your diet might be lacking. And it just becomes one of these well-rounded superfoods. And superfoods get categorized as they're rich in minerals and vitamins, but they also have all these other really powerful plant-based chemicals that engage with our body in very healing, balancing ways. That's kind of that category of superfood. So that is the other thing that it benefits. And my last and final super potent benefit is it has something called anthocyanin. The anthocyanin, and we know this chemical particularly, has been researched in the capacity to support brain function as well as memory. It addresses your memory. So if you've had short-term, long-term memory loss, concussion or brain injury, or TIA, or, those are mini strokes, or any type of episode where there's been vascular grief, maybe an aneurysm, or history or beginning stages of dementia, Alzheimer's, this is a chemical that can specifically support your brain health. And studies show that it can increase your memory. So when we're talking about folks that are run down, and, I fall in this category sometimes, like, some days where I'm really tired and just overwhelmed, I can't remember where I put things, and that's kind of what we call brain fog, but that's your memory. And so when we're in that brain fog state, stress related, and there's also brain related inflammation that comes with that. So one of the things we don't always think about is when, you're just kind of going through the day, you're driving and you're like, I don't really remember how I got from work to home. And I know we've all done that, right? So give me a little heart, raise your hand if you've had that. But one of the things that we see is that we can have vascular inflammation in the brain. So it addresses that, these anthocyanins, and the spelling antho, ANTHOCYANINS. So let's talk a little bit about globally what we know about COVID. For all of you who've watched my live, I feel like I'm a broken record, but I have to say these kind of things together. We know COVID causes brain-related inflammation. It causes heart inflammation and changes in the actual cells of our heart tissue. We know it's a vascular disease, it's a brain disease, and it's also a lung-related disease. There are a lot of properties that I've just listed, all these benefits, these phytochemicals, these nutrients, that this can be potentially very potent as a food supplement, a food source that can help balance the body. And that's what I think is really exciting about this study in Canada with Acai. Now, the study itself, they say that the data won't be released until the end of 2020. I don't know if I'll be doing live shows by then, but I promise you, I will definitely have some sort of video follow-up where I talk about that specifically. But I think this is really fascinating. In the world of nutrition and food as medicine, and using foods specifically for all the potent powerhouse nutrients, minerals, enzymes, phytochemicals, this is really exciting. And I can't underscore this. This is big, especially in the COVID world. The fact that we've got studies about food and its potency and ability to help regulate our immunity and lower inflammation. This is huge. So I'm very excited. I'm very excited by this. I'm very excited to share with you one of my favorites. And these little packets, like I get this, usually I get these at Whole Foods. So a lot of times Whole Foods will have my Acai. I will tell you, I have found Acai packets at Aldi. They're not always there all the time, but they're one of those super fines or Aldi fines, but very, very powerful. And Becky Jensen says, thank you so much for taking the time to not only do your show, but all the research as well. Distance learning is no joke. Yeah, seriously. Your plate is no doubt already very full. Your efforts are appreciated. Thanks, Becky. I appreciate that. Appreciation goes a long way. So thank you. I'm grateful. And that's actually one of the reasons why I'm scaling down the live show, trying to figure out how I can do all of this, because this morning was god awful with my child who doesn't want to eat breakfast. He was crying and complaining. I think he's growing again. We see these patterns where he ate almost everything I gave him yesterday. He wanted 4 snacks. And so it's challenging. He won't leave his iPad alone. He's messing with volume. The iPad's falling down. He's not participating. And so I do all this while trying to get ready for all of you, get my printouts and all my show kind of my mental notes. But yeah, it's very challenging. And in the midst of that, I do want to tell you this month I'm rolling out my hormone workshop. There's going to be 2 of them. The first we're going to roll out is the female hormone workshop. It's a paid workshop. It's going to be live. It's going to be amazing. I'm really excited. I'm putting together all these materials. There's a lot of freebies that you'll get as you sign up for, and it is a paid workshop. And then there'll be a sequence of several weeks that we work closely together through emails and a whole bunch of information and resources for women and men. So I'm working on that, as well as I am, let's see, what else am I doing? Sometimes it feels like I can't remember. I'm putting out more blog content because I know one of the things with the live shows, I know a lot of you are missing just the straight to the point information, and it's very easy for me to get you blog content that addresses a lot of your health questions. So they should be out. I think they started coming out yesterday. I have basically one a day on the blog coming out this week. So stay tuned for that. Check my website if you're curious about learning more about that. And the other big thing is that I'm looking at getting back into taking new virtual appointments. And so I'm sorting all that out. I've got to make space and just make sure I can handle all that. So I will be announcing all of those as they all get buttoned up and I get more clarity on that. But I'd say sometime probably the 3rd week of September is when we are probably aiming to have that workshop come out. And then after the first live, it'll be an ongoing workshop. So very, very exciting to announce that. So as soon as I get that, I will post to all of my social media. I'll post it on the community tab. I'll announce it in a YouTube video. But that's kind of, I try to be really transparent with you guys, and I really appreciate your encouragement and just your patience as I try and figure things out. And Becky, that just so invigorates me, that comment that you made. I appreciate it. An organic 538497 says, you are so inspiring. The information you provide us is so greatly appreciated. And the other thing too, the interview I mentioned that I had yesterday, it was really wonderful, very impactful, I think hopefully impactful interview. I should be getting the edited form of that, and I'm going to try and release it. Probably won't be on YouTube specifically, but I'll probably post it to my private community, and it may be something that just goes on my website. So just FYI, look out for that sometime this month. So September is a really busy month. And I start gearing up. The busy time for my practice is when school gets back in session, and that's very random right now in terms of what that looks like for a lot of parents, but also leading up to the new year. The new year is really busy. A lot of people are trying new health initiatives with their lives. And so I always go into ramp up phase. So that's kind of what's going on. Maya says, we love acai in Portugal. Highly recommend it to my clients. Thank you. Yes, it's so, so good. Very, very exciting. So Leah says, I love smoothies, but if the virus can live weeks to years in the freezer, what if frozen food you're not going to heat, like smoothie, was contaminated with the virus? Risk to buy that product. So that is an excellent question. I mean, I think what you have to do is you have to look at really specifics. And a lot of times you can get details on the packaging of when it was manufactured. And depending on, because acai is an Amazonian superfood, doesn't mean that Brazil is the only place manufacturing it. So, a lot of times these berries get transported, they get, transported to an American company, an American plant. There's sanitation processes that occur. So that is something that I'm less concerned about, like my frozen vegetables and my frozen smoothie items. I'm more concerned about the poultry and the meat. And again, that's why I say this is a great time to go plant-based, or to at least start looking at how can we eat more plant-based grains that have protein. I've highlighted in a lot of my Aldi hauls, Aldi has great plant-based, protein-rich alternatives. Like we will consume edamame noodles. We will consume like Trader Joe's. They have a red rice and lentil. I think it's lentil and brown rice, red lentil, brown rice noodles, and they're rich in protein. I also recommend, adding mushrooms and other nutrients that can give you some potency there. So as for the freezer, it's more on the outside of the items particularly, but then again with the poultry. So, what I say is just be really cognizant. Like I've highlighted the Fisher Farms. I think it's Foster Farms in California. Just know like people in California might be buying from them, and they need to know, that there's this outbreak, and, every company's trying to deal with this, and we're all trying to stay afloat. I just learned this morning, one of this is totally not health related, but a bar that is a kind of very popular bar in Boston just closed. And they've been around forever. They've been around in the area where the garden is, and, where I used to work. We would often go out for happy hour or, go to these areas and restaurants. And the fact that we're seeing companies shutter is challenging with COVID. And because of that, a lot of companies are trying to survive, stay afloat. Not every company has good financing. And some are already overextended before COVID hit. So restaurants particularly are getting hit hard. Okay, so I hope this was helpful. Did you guys like this? I wanted to really, I always try and be impactful with the new research. This is one of those things where this is right up my wheelhouse in terms of food. Food is healing, the research on it. And then with COVID, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. So that's why I wanted to highlight that. But again, in the comment or in the description box and Instagram, you guys will have this when this wraps. I have links to acai extract that you can get in capsules. So if you're really concerned, encapsulation would be a little bit of a safer process than raw. But you can get these, in frozen food sections. You might want to ask your grocer because sometimes they can order them. And I've done that a lot. I usually have a relationship with the grocery manager and say, I want X, Y, and Z brand to bring in, and they will usually do it. But just know that you can get the extract in capsules, and you can also get those little chocolates that are awesome. And they also have mulberry in them, and they're so good. So I definitely encourage you to check that out. And Fullscript is, it's amazing. So it's dark chocolate, acai with mulberries. It's a company that, it's Extreme Health. It looks like a lot of you have ordered it. So we'll be getting more in stock, but this Turkish mulberry has resveratrol. So there's so many different like actual additional benefits with the acai, and it has omegas in it. So good. So definitely do check that out. And if you guys have any questions, Friday, so tomorrow I'm taking the day off in the morning. We'll go back to our Friday Q&A Friday. So tomorrow I'll post on Instagram stories, maybe my Instagram feed, and the YouTube community tab. I'll have a call for questions. So Friday's content, Friday's Q&A live will stay the same. And then I will be taking Saturday off. So we'll do right now Monday, Wednesday, and Friday live show, and see if I can pull that schedule for you guys. So, but I really appreciate all of you tuning in. You guys are so wonderful. And Christy C and Futuristic, yay, thank you. And definitely, please, if you love this, if you love my work, you love the content, please give me a thumbs up, hit the share button, share to your social communities, email your friends. And also as soon as I get done with this, I do a whole bunch of editing inside YouTube. Once it's up, if you could just comment on the video and also on Instagram, that does help. There's this thing called an algorithm. And the more people that comment, like, and share, the greater it gets out to a broader amount of people. So they will suggest the videos, and it just helps not only grow our community, but also get this information out. So disseminating information helps greatly when you like and comment and share. So please do so, and really appreciate all of you. I hope you guys have a fantastic, fantastic day. And we've got a holiday coming up. Oh, and by the way, Friday, Gabriel will be off. So you might see him in the background running in. So fun times. He's almost 5. This month is his birthday month. So I've got to figure out how to bring an awesome birthday to him during COVID time. So I'm working on that now. We've got some ideas. And so if you guys have any great ideas that, it does not involve having people at a party, but also makes it memorable, please share. I'm all ears. Okay, friends, thanks for tuning in. Great to see you all. Thanks, Pat, for moderating as always. And I hope all of you have a great tomorrow, and I will see you on Friday. Bye, everybody. See you guys later. Bye, YouTube.